Hey everyone, I'm Mark de Grasse, and you're listening to the AI Branding Podcast, where we discuss branding, marketing, content, and AI, and how to use all of those components together to create the most genuine and ethical and moral marketing plans possible. Today, I have one of our AI branding partners, Etan Polinger. He's one of the first of our partners, a good friend of mine. We worked together for quite a while with not only just the education side of marketing, but on some projects themselves. So he's amazing, amazing guy, amazing at both marketing and a specific aspect of marketing that we call experiential marketing, which is what we're going to discuss today. So welcome to the show, Etan.
Awesome. So happy to be here. Here we go.
Here we go again. I think we've done a few podcasts before. This will be the third channel, I think, because we did the digital marketer a few times, and
Yep.
then my personal podcast, and now we're doing the new organization podcast. So,
Yep.
you know,
And then we did
anywhere I can
my
fit you in.
podcast too. That one.
Well, it's awesome. So, one of the things we talk about a lot, especially when I do like our boot camps, I'm always like experiential, like, in-person matters. Probably increasingly so because we're seeing a lot of, we're having a lot of distrust with the content we find online just because we know that AI is a thing. And now it's like, is that big crowd actually a big crowd, or is it just AI superimposed on a picture? Like that's a big question these days. So how do you kind of explain to people what experiential marketing is and why do you think it's so important today?
Yeah, definitely. So when I think about experiential marketing, it's very much as stated, but it's what is the customer, what is the person going through, feeling, right? In that moment of every touch point they have with you as a business. And that could be, when we're doing physical events, those are all the things around and a surrounding, every action, every word, every visual that is either, placed there to be very obvious or not, but everything that's building into what they are indeed, feeling, smelling, in that moment.
Hmm.
Everything has to do with that experience at the end, right? And I think why is it important is because especially today, funny enough, I was just doing this article about all the topic, CMO, the Chief Marketing
Mhm.
Officer events all over. And one of the top things people are talking about is that customer experience as a whole and retention, which are two, that's like the main theme in many of these events. It's because everyone's focused on getting new people instead of creating powerful moments and good interactions with their current ones.
Oh yeah, that's really the name of the game. I always talk about lifetime customer value as being the future metric we're all gonna gauge our profitability by. But it's kind of been lost because I think I mean, we had the down years where nobody was able to meet in person. But now I think it's a resurgence of that because customers don't have as much money. And honestly, I think we're all kind of tired of the good enough type of service or the good enough type of product. And it's all connected with this experience that people have, not just with your product or service, but with you, as the business owner, as the marketer. So for you, have you actually applied these principles for, a successful event, or how did you kind of incorporate those aspects into it?
Definitely. I mean, so there's a few examples that I typically use for this that I've really enjoyed. One relates to there was a grand opening for this MedSpa that we did, and one was actually the sales process for one of the top most advanced biohacking facilities in the country, where I was fortunate enough to be one of the, people who helped build it. And we designed experience into every single element of someone's journey there, right? So what we did there in particular was really crafting this story of understanding. We're here in Albuquerque, New Mexico, right? Um, Most people thought we were kind of crazy because this was this high-end facility in Albuquerque, and people were telling us it's not going to work. What are you going to do? But we also knew that most of the people here are going to go out to Vegas, they're going to go out on vacation and drop money like nowhere else because they have money. There is a community here who has money, and more so that's looking for that experience of those things. So what we had to do is not just think about the thing itself, which is I think where a lot of people are caught up is I sell a wallet, which is this is a whole experiential story as a whole. I don't know if
I
you
remember
remember
that
this.
one too.
Yeah, for DNC. But it's not what you're selling, it's how are you selling it? What is the experience of it? And in this case, right, when people would come in to a tour for this facility, we would almost immediately, right, offer them this great drink called Kineuphorics, which is not, we weren't drugging anyone. Just some caffeine and L-theanine, which helps you kind of relax and have a good vibe. And just overall, green tea of sorts, right? Only lighter. And then it would come on this beautiful kind of brass platter, right? And in the drink, they would put this rosemary inside and some, raspberries, just an overall really nice thing that cost us, I don't know, not a lot, $6 to pull together, right? Let's say. And they would immediately be transported. So we start by breaking the context, because the problem is people are going to compare this to a gym. There's a human performance center. So if we compare it to a gym, there's no way you're going to spend $600 a month or up to $2,500 a month on a gym membership, right? So how do we break the context immediately? We create a different experience, a different story. And that felt like landing on a tropical island, right? Every time you go to Mexico, a different place on vacation, something new, they offer you a drink at the airport, right? So we opened that door over there, and we would lead them through a step where each side of that tour was designed to create and evoke a certain response or certain feeling as it relates to their goals, right? And ultimately, it will lead to this space where we did this whole pledge, which we talked about also in Traffic and Conversion Summit. But this was a big deal because this changed the whole story. We would come to an end of this tour and all these, AI technology and hyperbaric chambers and cryotherapy and a Himalayan salt room tucked away in his side. You would never guess it's like this beautiful salt room suddenly, right? All these different experiences lead to this moment where we would essentially, ask them, are you interested in learning more about this? Once they would say yes, I would say, perfect. Here's how it goes. And I would pull this beautiful card, right? This card stock, almost like a scroll-esque folder within this beautiful blue and navy and gold kind of folder. And I would place it on a table and I would slide it over to them. Then I would pull out this cross pin. I actually might have it here. Let's see. No, didn't come with it. But this cross pen, not this pilot pen, a beautiful pen, $50 pen, right? You would pull it up and I would say, this is how this goes. I'm going to give you this pen. It opens like this, right? I had this little clock in the middle. And then I would pass it on to them and I would say, read this right here. This is the optimum human pledge. If you read this and this feels like a good fit for you, what I want for you to do is to take this pen and sign your name at the bottom. And then we're going to read it out loud together. Okay. So we would read this pledge. Then they would, most of the time they read it because it's all about this inspirational. It's crafted in a really, really well, good way that creates this evoke of, I can step into the best me. For me, family, for my community, this whole thing, right? Might be some cultish elements in it. It's not a cult though. But it was overall to evoke this inspiration, because what do we also know is that people most of the time don't go to gyms, don't do the stuff that they're supposed to do, even if they do sign up. So this was meant to help them stick to their commitment to actually become better. Then they would sign, and then the rainfall of reciprocity and gifts. And I would tell them they're in. Everyone would come out and, oh my God, congratulations. And we would get the swag bag and the bag and this. And then all these great, great things would happen, one after the other, right? Leading into this cascade of this love bomb experience of, I'm now in, I'm in optimum, right? So when they would leave, how much, one, we had a close rate, which sounds often fake to people, at the time of around 90%, right? Wow. Every single person who came in and needed what we had would join, pretty much, right? We had 10% that wouldn't. That was it. And then people would stay for a while. Even as we were figuring out stuff to work the business side of it, the back end, there was so much built up with that experience that they stayed for a long time at the beginning to help us, like there was a lot of forgiveness. There was a whole lot of giving. So that's this, when I talk about experiential marketing, it's not only for an event, but it's any physical space sometimes, or even digital these days, that if you design the touch points in the right way to create the right emotion, the right thought process, the right trigger for, behavioral psychology and whatnot, then you can get really cool experiences that everyone benefits from.
Ah, I love that. Well, and I love the touch points and the attention to detail because I've done a lot of house selling, just me personally, and then I was in real estate for a while. But the thing I
Mm,
noticed was that the best showing houses were the ones that had the attention to detail, the little plant in the corner, or the rolled up towels in the bathroom. Like there's these things that we associate with like high end or high quality,
mm,
and all you have to do is think about it a little bit and be like, oh, what would take this experience to the next level if I just add like the pen? I love your pen example. Like, I'm going to show you this pen, and it was very explicit. It was like, here's how this is going to happen, and that's another part of the experience because what the bad customer experience is let you the customer figure this stuff out for yourself, and I'm
mhm.
not going to show you anything. I'm not going to instruct you in any way. I'm going to give you freedom. You could figure it out. And honestly, nobody wants that. Like if, especially with a new experience. So I love all that.
100%. No, that's the pen was a beautiful, this was a really fun thing because I would get all dramatic, right? Then you change your tone of voice and it changes the room almost immediately when you change your voice, right? It's like,
Mhm.
this is how it goes. We're gonna take this pen and it's the black box, But it would really be this impactful thing, and they get to keep the pen at the end. But should have fun, that was not a part for them to be part of the tribe.
No, and and the thing is like nothing you described was that expensive. It's like the fancy drink was, just a few pieces of fruit and some jasmine. Like it's not anything crazy. And I think that's usually the misconception about experiential marketing, where people think like, oh, I want to do that, or I'm going to do that once we're successful and I have all this money and I could sit down and think, or I could hire a specialist, or I could do all these different things. Like, no, no, just think for 1 second.
Right.
What
Right.
would
And
you like?
the more fun and the more you give,
Mm,
that is the power of experience marketing. When you are having fun and you're giving just pure generosity and fun and trying to make this a great moment for this
mm,
person, you're gonna win and they're gonna win no matter what, pretty much. Right? The pen they only get if they join. So okay, I lost. I mean, there's no money. That's a $50 pen. No, it's that's an expensive purchase, but it's a minimum buy-in of a monthly membership of 500 with like a
yeah.
discount. Okay? Minimum, and I only sold 1,000 plus packages myself, right? So it's if I give them a $50 pen to make their moment bigger, to increase the odds of the business making the what we need to grow, then we're all winning. And it's not a big expense. It's not like I'm giving you a
No.
pen a month.
Well,
Yeah.
not only that, but it probably has the logo on it. You can make a nice looking pen that does have a logo, and then all of a sudden now it's something they're never going to throw away, and now they'll remember where they got it.
So you know what's funny? I actually and recently I read this, but this is how we thought before. I don't know if you read the book Giftology, which unfortunately the author just passed away recently. But this book is phenomenal. I do recommend it if people are wanting to know how to incorporate gifts. We were just kind of doing that, unknowing kind of all the strategy that this person put into this book, which is fantastic, but on an ongoing basis, which is basically, there's all these incredible things in it, but it's about the taking a percentage of what you're making from a client or what you're making for the transaction and using it back for, meaningful, surprise in the lifetime gifts, but not necessarily a logo because they still, when it's that impactful, they're still going to
By itself.
like, and it's this green, very unique, like it's already by itself enough to say this is optimum, right? They'll always know it also because of the moment. So while I would say that the logo thing, is good for maybe a different environment, but when you really like that type of level of a gift, I think it's more about, no, it's a gift for you. I don't need you
I like
to.
that. I love that. I like it even better because it is. It's like we're so confident you're going to remember us that like we're just going to give you this. Like it's no big deal. There's no strings attached. Like it's just what we do, and that actually is a level up too. That little tiny details, right? And that's what it is. But I also like how you describe multiple senses, because I think that's another thing that we don't think enough about. We always think visual, and we always think maybe the copy, like what's being said, like what's being heard, but we don't get to the other senses, smell, which is super powerful, especially in terms of memory. A lot of people discount that, like, hey, how often have you smelled something? It takes you back to first grade, when you just got home from your first day of school and mom baked cookies or whatever, then you're like, oh, yeah, of course, but we don't do it. So what's your recommendation in terms of maybe finding your scent? We'll kind of switch it up with the experience here.
So I used to say, this is what I used to say, and what is available now, thanks to you,
Yeah.
to explore it. But if I were to go old school on it, I would also think about, there's different smells evoke different emotions, different feelings, different, it's just a known overall fact. It's funny that people neglect to sometimes read into how did some of these big companies do some of their moves, right? IKEA was famous for having their scents go all through this place. So when you'd be hungry at the way out, and all this rent, even if you didn't buy anything that day, which happens a lot there, you're paying the money for high margin things.
Oh yeah.
um, or there's so much to the smell. Restaurants, and this is something that I know because my family comes from the restaurant businesses. My grandfather had the restaurants, my mom. And my mom would always tell me when I was a kid, this is, I think, the sign of a good restaurant. You want to be able to smell the food all the way from the kitchen.
Mm.
Good food. You want to smell the food. It makes you hungry. It's getting you ready for the meal. And I always remember that. But also for the experience of what is it about to do for someone. When you walk into a spa, what are you trying to do? Well, when I worked with spas, and I still work with spas, but it's this, I want to transition whatever the hell is going on out there in the world. When you come
So
into
good.
my space, relaxing, quiet, nice soothing smell. I'm in a different space. And that's when we think about the sound and smell and all that is what am I trying to create? Now, the great spas, you notice it almost immediately are more relaxed when you walk in. And
Yep.
it's because of those visual, the kinesthetic, the smells, everything around it that's creating that. So I think it's trying to find what environment has the smell that you're trying to evoke. If you're not a aroma expert, which I'm not necessarily one, but it's
Well,
trying
you
to
don't
find,
have to be. Well,
right?
especially because the competition in this area is so slim. Like the only ones I could think of are restaurants, hotels, because you do have like Hotel Zaza here in Austin. Like they have a specific scent. They actually sell the scent. I know because my wife buys it because I'm always like, oh, it smells good in my house. She's a very sensitive sense of smell. And so I'm like, oh, yeah, it smells great. But it
Yeah.
takes you back, right?
1,000,000%. And also, what do you want to be associated with? So,
Mm.
in Optimum, as an example, there's a high-end restaurant and farm here that does all these soaps and all these things.
Mm.
Immediately, what are the soaps in our showers? They're all from there. So it's connecting us with the other spots that people would already like and have a good experience with.
Mm.
Right?
Actually, the only
Also,
one I can think of that doesn't do that would be Bed Bath and Beyond. Or not Bed Bath and Beyond. What was it? It was Body Shop. There's this lotion store in the 90s malls, and you could smell it from like a mile away. It was like this fruity, sweet smell, and you knew you were next to this one store. And now that's all I could associate fruity smell, like fruity overbearing smell. Like, oh no. No, that's the
it,
gift pack that was given to every mom when I was a kid.
We have an amazing limited time offer that you won't want to miss. Introducing the Build Your Brand Pillars course from AI Branding Academy, your gateway to mastering both traditional branding and AI-powered marketing strategies. With this course, you'll gain invaluable skills in creating strong brand foundations that stand out in today's competitive market. Perfect for innovation leaders like you. Don't wait. Take advantage of this special offer before it's gone. Head to aibranding.academy.
oh God, it's funny. It really is. Things do stick to you way more if it's a bad memory, unfortunately. So
Uh,
if you have a good smell, that is way more going to be memorable. So you really have to overcome it with the smell is going to stick only if you have a really positive experience with it. Not it's the experience with what you're feeling, right? So if you just smell something, it's like, oh, that smells familiar. But if you have like an experience with that, then your
mm,
body then like records,
yep.
right? Oh, this smell, this person, sweet, I like this.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's true. Well, and the neat part about all of that is that a lot of times you're not doing this consciously. Like you're not like, oh, that's weird. Like now I'm going to associate this. It's like it's subconscious and you don't even realize it's happening or what triggered the memory in the first place. You might just be like, oh, I don't know why, but I miss my old dog and
Completely. I mean, there's a lot of this that comes. So part of one of my favorite things was there was a time, I'm gonna say it, but there was a time, maybe yeah, I don't know if are you familiar with what mentalists do, like the magicians?
Oh yeah, yeah. I remember Chris
Not
Angel.
really. Yeah, so the mentalist type sort, like Darren Brown is one of the most famous ones, and they influence essentially your mind, right, to basically come up with the answers that they want you to come up with,
Mm.
or be in a situation, it's mind control of sorts, right? It's all those people who are suddenly you're asleep. So I may have had a overly fascination with this part of
Oh,
things, but
nice.
was actually really interested in it from the marketing perspective too. It was how do they get people to do it? And one of my favorite scenes from a show with Darren Brown, which was one of the most famous mentalists at the time that I was kind of looking into all this, there was a very quick clip, I'm sure you can find online too, but it's this guy, he's walking throughout the day, and then Darren, like, meets with him at the end of the clip. We don't see everything that happened. And he just kind of walks up and he says, "Hey, I want you to think of a song in your head, right?" He says, "Play it in your mind, right? Play it louder, play it louder, play it louder." And suddenly a quartet comes behind him, is like playing that song,
Huh.
right? And it's like, what? How did this happen? And then it reverses the camera and it shows throughout the day that different people or different environments had that song playing
Huh.
the background. Like some guy was like whistling it, a construction worker next to him. Some person was, in a shop. She was like singing it, a little kid,
Oh
and all
my
these different things
gosh.
that was on in the supermarket he was in. They engineered the whole thing. So by the time he showed up, that decision was made pretty clear. He already knew the song because it was in his head like 12 times already that day.
Oh, it's so funny.
Right?
It's like, well, and the thing is, he didn't put it together when like, oh wow, oh look, now it's a band's playing the song right behind me. Like, might as
Yeah.
well. It's happened 10 times today for some reason.
Right.
I'd be
I'm
freaking
not
out about that.
So I guess in order to not confuse or scare anyone, it's not about manipulation. Like a mentalist wouldn't necessarily need to have the resources to pull that off, but it is about these little experiences that are building together from what you're seeing and what you're experiencing that builds to the outcome that you're going to get.
Oh yeah. Well, and I think it's just being intentional with it because if you say like, "Hey, I want to really take care of my customer," because that's really what it comes down to. Well, I
Yeah.
mean, it should come down to. You could be like, "How do I get the most money out of this sucker?" And it's like, no. How do you give the most value so that they never leave? Like they always will sing your praises and always come back and appreciate you so much. I mean, I think honest entrepreneurs, like that's what you want. You
Mhm.
want that relationship is what you're trying to build. And you just really sitting down and thinking about it is no different than you trying to impress your wife with roses and a candlelit dinner and all these things that we try to do to show like, I care about you. Could we
Right.
please go to the bedroom after this? Like, no, no, that's fine.
Nah, this is the world we're in. It's not a
It's just common, but it's we're kind of programmed for it, honestly. Like if you look at like all the Valentine's Day training that every man has had his whole life, just because probably they needed an extra holiday to sell some stuff.
Well,
That's
that's an interesting part for sure because they teach us about get a gift, said a nice thing, and maybe your night gets a little luckier. But the reality is, as we know, human relationship is more, it's yet more simple and also more complicated.
Mm.
It's all these elements of customer experience. If we talk about that, what is it typically known for? Well, it's fast delivery times
No,
or
yeah.
answer an email quickly. But it's actually, it's a human relationship. What makes a good relationship? Well, communicating expectations, the overall interaction and feeling when we're together, whatever it may be. And then what makes a really good one? Well, that's when you go over the top. That's when expectations are not only met, they're over exceeded. That's when communication is clear and consistent, so you never have to wonder or you're not sure, because clarity and of people in their path is so crucial. In
Oh,
fact, most agency clients, as an example, leave when they have communication was the main reason, right? Or they
yeah.
haven't felt like they were a priority. So prioritizing, right, making them feel special, is really just where do you put them on your list, and all these other things. But it's really just relationship, and then you say, okay, how can I make this the best for them?
Oh yeah.
Awesome.
Well, the cool part is it doesn't have to be perfect either because sometimes your best customer or client is somebody that it didn't go well at first. Like, hey, we started, the balls were dropped, like we kind of screwed up a little bit here, but then we got on the phone and we talked it out and we figured it out and then we grew from here and now we have a great, customer relationship because I took care of a problem, even if I created the problem on accident. Like it's still the correction was the experience.
100%. And we call that, the moment of truth, right? And
Mm.
that's the Also in relationships, but funny enough, in marketing, it's that moment of truth. In business as a whole, it's like that shit got real, as it often does in anything, right?
Yeah.
And it could be your fault, could be the economy's fault, could be their fault. It doesn't matter, but shit got real, and now you're both in this situation. How are you going to respond? And a lot of people today just say, "Well, I'll just ignore them until they go, or I will, or
Oh,
maybe
yeah,
I
the
just send an
ghosting.
email
That's
out and break that." But the truth is, if you show up and you step up, that's when people stay with you for much, much longer because now they know they're not only a real person, you're not going to back down when life is hard, which
mm,
it always is. So
yeah,
it's kind of
it's
a moment of truth. Now you're tested in that moment, and that creates a bond of like, we're going to get through this together. I know it might be me, it might be you, it doesn't matter, but I'm going to step up and figure it out. And
I
that's
love
a relationship move.
Yeah, well, it's genuine too, and I think with kind of how everything is developed, like that's what everybody really crave. Not fake genuineness or fake care, because we've actually seen how some big corporations have kind of adopted the like we really love you guys, and they come out with these big campaigns. Oh, we really care, and they're just saying it a bunch.
Right.
And I
Yeah.
always point to like the insurance companies as being like, yeah, the ones that are talking the most about how much they're going to take care of you seem to be the ones that will, stab you in the back the first time you actually try to get that, treatment that they've been advertising so much. Then all of a sudden, like, oh, look, I can't get a hold of anybody, or you said you were going to handle this in this situation, and now you've broken the trust, and now
Right.
I'm extra angry because the expectation was set and you not only missed it, it doesn't seem like you care about that you said it in the first place. And so, it's all
And
connected.
that's the Yes, and it's the communication of that and what you show of it. As you know, we talked about this before, like in marketing results, right? Where it's like, obviously you have to provide results to what you're doing. That's how your reputation is done. But if you actually care and you're a real person who's there with them and is partnering with them, your business is partnering with them in a way that is supportive, there for them, there to deliver the outcome,
Mm.
no matter doing it whatever way they can, right? Then they know they can trust you and they can work with you because nothing's ever perfect, right? We're in this
Yeah.
world that's crazy. Things happen every single day, right? So knowing that the business you're with actually cares enough to work with you can be its own experience sometimes.
Oh yeah, a huge marketing component too. Now, with all that said, it all sounds kind of complicated. We got multiple senses going
Yeah,
on. We got
yeah.
feelings and relationships. How have you seen AI kind of help you in, helping businesses and professionals kind of find their experience or execute the experience that they're trying to give?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, obviously, the number one choice and what I've been using, this is something that I've started deploying pretty much with anyone, is I start with the AI branding blueprint.
Hmm.
That is taught in the AI branding academy, of course. But this is, I'm not saying this as a plug or anything. This is legitimately took hours out of my, assessments and what I'm thinking, especially if it's an environment that I'm not necessarily sure of, right, or something new. But being able to create, right, and you have your experiential guide too, that gives a lot of the support for making these decisions, or at least exploring them too, and having just like here you go. Why don't you try this? This is all based off your brand, your customer, your what you're trying to achieve, your vision, your goals, and based off all of that and who you are, here is what you could try that is going to be pretty, and it's been spot on. I gave a whole docket for this spa I was working at that was about the lighting selections for different rooms. That was a level that I did not play at. And this helped me actually step into another layer of ideation, which was like, oh, yeah, that would be great. You're right.
I always discover that stuff when I'm using the GPTs where I'm like, oh my gosh, that's an awesome idea. And I never would have come up with that, honestly, because we don't have the skill set. It's like as marketers, I think we're trying to create the experience, but we not might not know about lighting or scent selection or
Right.
interior design, but you don't have to anymore. And
No,
if
I mean,
nothing else, it gives you a guideline to say, okay, here's what I think you should do. And we start the process before we even contact the specialist. That's kind of the point.
1,000,000%. I mean, and I didn't know a lot of what I know right now about experience, but we had a designer, We had for Optimum, right? We had all these people in the mix who were very creative individuals that, I was able to explain what I'm trying to evoke, and then we would work together for it. This is like having that, right?
Mm.
Only better. It's always on brand. So it's not even making any like it's not going to be some random, what I think is going to
Yeah.
be great here, purple wall, right?
I love
It's
the
like,
color purple, you know.
yeah,
Well, and that's what you lead, like when you don't define these things, what you're essentially saying is, hey, professional, I'm bringing you in. Let's just do whatever you say, because either they trust the professional too much, which isn't a bad thing if you qualify them, or we don't trust them at all. And it's like, yeah, I know, Etan recommends I use greens and aqua colors in my spa because they'll make people relaxed, but I really love blood red and bright yellow. So we're going to incorporate some of that too. And you're like, oh my gosh, you just destroyed the mood. Like, and you might like it, but everybody else, your customer.
by far, what I love the most about the AI brand blueprint is the idea of we're on the same page moving forward, period. And that is something that has been such a pain because what happens also, and that's another option, this is at least 8 out of 10 times. This is the reason I see people just say, just do what you want, or what do you think? You're the expert. It's because they're too overwhelmed to even add another thing as a business owner, as someone there's so much going on. They're like, I don't even know where to begin with this. Even as a marketer, definitely like yeah, all these campaigns, all these things, like where people don't, I think agencies should also acknowledge for a second, especially if you're not like a one niche, business,
Mm-hmm.
you are actually running many businesses. You're in different industries. You're reading about the insights of what's going on there. You're creating ads for this audience and for that audience, in this city and in that city, in this country and in that country.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's so much capacity. So you're not thinking about a lot of these things that are so important, but you can't. Who has the bandwidth and who has the skill? So this is like hiring that skill in the AI form, but also with the owner. It's like we get this agreement once, and now we're 90% way always there. So they can add their stuff as they always will. If anyone thinks a business owner is not going to add their stuff to things, there may be 3% of true CEOs or in some companies are just like, I don't care, do whatever you think, you're the pro, and the rest care. And even 2% of those three say that and then actually do come in anyway.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. I've had clients like that, like, no, you're the expert. Do whatever you think. I'm like, great, here you go. And then they're like, well, oh, I don't like any of that, but I don't know why. And I need you to do it again. And you're like,
Everyone goes through it.
oh my gosh.
This is a topic, by the way. This is something bigger and more major. I think if this is on a working with client side and business owner side, that's where I flipped my position almost completely in some areas where I said, you're the business owner. This is your baby. This is your journey. This is your mission. I'm bringing this skill set for you, but it's your, we're going to follow your hunch a lot. There's going to be reasons where I'm going to tell you where we have to do something,
Mm.
right? Based off just best practice. I know you're going to maybe want to try stuff. We'll have a testing budget for that, whatever it may be, to see if it works. But for some of these fundamental things, you're going to have to trust me on. But first, let's get agreement on this. And this is what this blueprint really does. And I know I've been talking about this blueprint a lot, but it really does help all of that positioning, all of that conversation. You're just moving on. It's like, yeah, this sounds good. This looks good. This is the experience I want to give. This is how I want to run a community. All these different elements of a business that are critical that they probably never even thought of themselves are now on paper, and we can all work together to create much better things for our clients.
I love that. Well, and I think it's, if anybody's kind of scared, like, oh, well, the AI is going to take away all these things from all the interior designers and musicians and all these people who, create the elements of the experience. I'm like, no, it's going to make those people way more successful. Because instead of you hiring someone to be like, hey, I don't know what to do, just put something to do your best. We'll go through the whole ideation process with you too. They're rarely successful and they're much less happy than, hey, musician, based on our experiential sonic, analysis of this brand. We need this tempo. We need these instruments. We need this genre or these genres. What do you think we should do? Create a custom song. Like when I made websites, when people came to me with like specifics of what they want, I'm like, oh, thank God. We don't have to go through all this other work. I get the job done 10 times faster. You're 10 times happier, and everybody can move forward with their lives. So I always like to preface it with that because I'm always like, don't worry. This is going to make everybody happier with us
Yes.
being able to manage this crap easier.
100%. I mean, this is another conversation I was having with a mutual friend, Chris Daigle, the CEO of ChiefAIOfficer.com, right? So he was saying, I mean, and this is something, this is something we've been talking about. We all talk about this. You talk about this a lot. A lot of us who've been in this space who are kind of looking at the trends of what's happening. We know it's not going to replace people it's not going to replace people who are using
Yeah.
AI. Anyone who's not using AI is going to be in threat because there is going to be someone who's as talented, who found a way to do things faster, better, more predictable, more reliable, and a better experience. And this, by the way, one of my favorite things about AI and what's happening is that we're actually going to be able to turn our focus, ideally, I hope so. I know I've worked for some private equity firms or private, that did not care about that. But this gives us the opportunity to put a lot of focus on experience and relationships that we couldn't do before. Not to delegate that. Let's delegate the work, the systems, the operations, a lot of the stuff there, and then focus in and narrow in on actually bringing this humanity into a whole other level that we can bring now. Because I won't have to do as much, right? I built this person, this email assistant. It's amazing. Like they could just, and I built him like a Claude database. Okay. Here's a tip for some people. But anyhow, I collected a lot of their emails. I've analyzed it for all the different topics they answer for typically. Then I created basically a custom GPT that helps them from now on. Their assistant can answer as they would for pretty much any scenario. And it's 99% there. So she looks at it, does a little review, good to go. Right. So now she's able to actually serve people in the best way possible, not by responding to a million emails that may or may not be. That's not the service, people. Okay. That's not. I know some people are like, but that's the experience. It's like, no, emailing is not an experience. That's communication.
Yep.
That is part of it, but it's not the main event here.
Yeah, no, that's fantastic. Well, and a great use of AI too, because it should make things easier, more consistent, and like we teach at the academy, like it's the vision of the founder. Because at the end of the day, that person's butt's on the line, and they also have the most to gain from things going right. But if you, again, you're not defining all these things, if you haven't thought about all these things, you're delegating that task to somebody who's probably cares less, is less qualified, and has their own personal agenda that has nothing to do with you. And now whose company is it or whose vision is it? And it's like, it's everybody's vision. I'm like, no, it's not. It's not a democracy. That's not the point. Your customer is the point, and then that's it. That's the people you're taking care of. So just worry about them and the execution of that.
And beyond that, if we talk about that component of vision, that it helps create too, just that one piece of the brand pillar, right? So many people don't even have that vision, right?
No.
Down. They have some vague, maybe vague. They don't connect to it. They don't feel it. They're not communicating it to their team, no matter how many leaders say that it's one of the determining factors if they're going to do well or not, right? And also, what ties everything together is having that direction, that point. That is such a powerful thing that that vision builder GPT does, is that you get this clarity almost immediately, both if you're working with a client as a fractional CMO or an agency, whatever it may be, or any type of other people who work with clients. You give them that clarity, they're themselves like, what? That's amazing. Yeah, that is what I want to do. Let's go. Right? They get re-inspired and also focused, and you're able to always serve them towards their goal. The vision, hey, I thought this is where you wanted to go.
Oh, yeah, well, that's a great point too, because that actually ends a lot of conversations where you're just like, no, this is based on what you told me. This is exactly what you want, and I could logically explain it to you. I don't even need to because I just have AI come up with the reasons, and then you're not going to argue with this because it's what you want. So let's just go ahead and move forward and not have a discussion about these colors on the walls. This doesn't matter.
That's the fear they have often though, right? Is that they don't, if they haven't had that clarity, they're like, how do I, and they don't know that you know where to go. And it's because you don't, because they don't know.
Yeah. It's all one big circle. Oh.
Yeah.
Well, I think you're really helping people figure it out. I think, just from your case studies, it's like, oh my gosh, those experiences, like very few businesses have been able to achieve that, but you're really helping people execute it. Where can people learn more if they want to work with you in terms of having these things created for them?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm on LinkedIn, Etan Polinger. Find me there. I'm sure there'll be a link somewhere here.
Yeah,
And
the links everywhere.
that's the main place to hang out or connect.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Etan. This has been fantastic as always. Always enjoy the stories and your presentation of them. You really transport people to like, oh my gosh, I can picture seeing in a spa and having this conversation, and then the balloons come out. Like it sounds great. So
Yeah.
anytime, and we'll have you back on to talk about the fractional CMO stuff, which I know a lot of people have questions on. Very popular topic, and I always, I've done it a few times. I'm like, it's a difficult job. Everybody acts like it's just something that happens. I'm like, have you been an executive before? Because it's not easy and it's a big pain in the
Yeah.
butt. Anyways, we'll have you back on soon for that.
Love to talk about it.
All right. Thank you so much for listening. This has been the AI Branding Podcast, where we talk about content, marketing, branding, and pulling it all together with AI. If you want more content like this, please subscribe.